South Illinois.
Check.
Let me know when you get it started, and I'll join this computer to the meeting.
Yeah, it started.
What's the code?
It is 258 723 0134. No password.
Yeah. Where's that at? Oh. Go, the driveway goes in which direction? Like 31. Which lot? Driveway goes down into one of those. Okay. All right. No, okay.
Okay, when you get ready, we can just share this computer screen.
I'll pin it. So when they're presenting, I'll pin the video.
All right, let's go through it.
Yep. You want to rename it from GDOT?
Yeah. All you do, you just start recording.
Just get recording mic.
Yeah, we got that.
Kirby, is that you?
Yes, sir.
I couldn't tell with all that man.
I know. I can't recognize you. I was trying to read this, but my glasses fogged up every time I tried to.
I can't wait to show the place. Lisa said she had heard, but
Wow, nice.
Is he gonna go first?
you got to write it up. Comes Joe.
Hey, how are you?
Hey, Eric. We're good.
Yeah, she gave us, the thing that she emailed us this morning. Yes.
Got that, but there's not one issue showing the proposed list. It's untitled. It's working. Good, how are you? Where did you get that place a little white? That's me.
When I was on board, they had light. And others.
clean, I like that.
It is very good.
Yes. I had a sketch there. I think it's back. Yeah. I got Frank right here. Handicap park.
All right, busy.
That's probably best.
Remember,
That's Pete right there, should KD, I guess. KD coming. Thanks. How are you?
I'm good. Thank you.
Pretty nice. I put the dose. Okay. So that way one. See you out there. That's gonna come up before we talk. Thank you. Or, oh, you meant there. Oh. He's here.
Somewhere else.
That's the first thing I said. So we.
I believe it.
Do you, what time?
We have about 3 minutes.
No, 8 minutes. Children, this is my children. I said, "You." I said, "7." What's that?
Not for long.
Bob's mom used to be chairman. He used to say, "We are here gathered friends among friends." And that's linked to that.
That's right.
Yes.
Actually, I've already got this. And one of them is medications and maintenance medications that we use. It's not that, it's a no.
Oh, you were included, you were on that.
Yeah.
Hey, Jessica.
Don't need any other microphones for this table. Like she was looking maybe to read notes from there. They haven't turned off. We got all the mics turned off. Over there.
That's the spotlight over there.
Yes.
That's fine.
Film the TV light.
Here he comes now. I was just talking about you.
Me.
But you chickened out on me.
Get over there.
Yeah, we're at 8 o'clock.
Notice that. I don't know.
Thank you. It's gonna fall either way I do.
Let's say we take the clock down because we record the meeting while you're
One minute, Pete. Yeah.
It's showtime. I'd like to welcome everyone tonight to the August 17th edition of the City of Griffin Planning and Zoning Board meeting. As I have said before, on each one of our meetings, this is simply a hearing. We are citizens here, and we are to talk with our fellow citizens. We want to hear what folks say, and that's exactly what we're here tonight to do, is to get some issues out in front, and let's talk about it so we can get things done in a good fashion. So when we do send it up to the commissioners, they'll have an idea of what's happened. With that, I'm going to read a statement that I normally don't read, so bear with me. The City of Griffin.
We'll call it order.
Yeah, they need-
Sorry, we'll call it order. Apologies.
We were going to read this before the order.
We need to call the meeting to order before we read any kind of instructions. And
Okay, well, that's fine. I do call this meeting to order. I do declare that there is a quorum present.
I move that we approve the agenda.
I second.
Motion second, all in favor? That be unanimous. The City Board of Commissioners appoints the Planning and Zoning Board members. One of its purposes is to conduct open meetings that are related to planning and zoning. The information gathered at this meeting and the recommendation of the Planning and Zoning Board are forwarded to the City Board of Commissioners. The City Board of Commissioners takes the final action on matters presented to them based on the information from the public hearing, the recommendation of the Planning and Zoning Board, and debate among the members of the Commission public hearing meeting. Anyone desiring to speak before the Planning and Zoning Board is limited to 10 minutes. If a group wishes to speak, one person must be designated to speak for that group. Having said that, we will move to the order of old business.
I must make a motion we approve unless someone else has spotted an error that I haven't.
We have a motion to approve. Is there a second?
I second.
We have a motion
We're
from the
doing
second.
minutes, right?
Right, the minutes. The only thing I can see is on the third line of minutes. There is a gentleman in town named Jim Hall. I'm I, he's A. We have a little thing, I call him A, he calls me I. So if you just change that from Jim Hall to Jim Hill. Okay, we have a.
See that?
Okay.
See that?
Have a motion and a second. I'll call the vote. All in favor of approving minutes with the correction. Let there
I move that we
be, the record show 3 and 2 abstentions. Okay, Chad, let me ask you this. Tonight we're meeting, when is the commissioners meeting that will follow?
August 25th,
August the 25th.
a
Okay,
week from tomorrow.
a week from tomorrow.
Yes, sir.
Okay, thank you. All right, under the caption of new business, let me make one statement. We have had a number of written statements about one of the agenda items. And I would ask that if you have made a submission on the website, if you would, and you would like to speak tonight, we would rather you either speak or have your statement read, but we really don't want both. So that's one of the things that I'm asking for you. With that, I believe the first thing that we have on the agenda tonight under new business is to consider a request for a special use permit to allow residential housing located at 308 South 5th Street, submitted by the Mabbitt Family Limited Partnership in care of Henry Mabbitt.
Yes, so what you have before you this evening is a special use request. The property is located in the CBD, Central Business District, and has been used both residentially in the past and most currently in a office type setting. We were approached by Mr. Mavitt that he is looking to have the structure utilized residentially again. And so we're coming under the special use process and actually recommending approval of that request with the following conditions. That the structure shall meet all requirements of applicable residential codes to bring the structure into compliance. Examples being building code and fire codes. B, additionally, if the structure reverts to a commercial use, then it must meet all applicable commercial codes and occupancy requirements. Same type of deal. Maximum occupancy based on formulas contained in the statewide minimum building code, and also fire and life safety compliance based on inspections. And finally, upon vacating this location for its principal site, the special use permit will be void. So with that, I'd be more than happy to answer any questions.
Okay, it looks like on the what's that, the east side of Fifth Street, there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 houses that kind of would fall into that category too.
Yes, sir. So it's a bit of a mixture out here. Actually, immediately adjacent to this property to the south is a home that's currently being used residentially, and I believe one even to the south of that one's being used residentially. Across the street, there are some structures, older homes that have been converted into office type uses. The beauty of the special use permit is it offers some fluidity. So that way both Planning and Zoning Board and the Board of Commissioners can look at these on a case-by-case basis as market parameters change, affords the property owner some opportunity to utilize their property in a way that the market's kind of trending. So currently right now with this one, and again, with it being in the Central Business District, kind of closer to town, you see, it's not uncommon to see these mixtures of uses.
I just wonder if those folks that live there really know what's going to happen on Friday nights.
It's funny because when I was putting a sign out there, actually, a gentleman that was sitting on his front porch on the house next door to it, he said, "Are they looking to use that residential?" I said, "Yes, sir, they are." I said, "Oh,
There's 2 high schools, and not only football,
yeah,
but soccer being
Yeah.
played on that field. It gets a little noisy over there sometimes.
a little rowdy."
But the bad thing about that, that's the opponent's side now.
There you go. There you go.
So
I think that it's beautiful street. I love it.
so when it-
It is a cool night.
Yes, it's very nice.
School teachers used to love it when the school was over there.
Yeah.
All those things, man.
Rebecca Jepson.
Is this gonna be used as a rental property?
No, man. Actually, he has a buyer lined up that's looking to buy it for him.
So the special use permit will flow to the new buyer?
Yes, it would go from use.
We discussed that earlier. It does. It flows to the new buyer.
I'd like to make a motion unless we got any further discussion.
Okay, I will entertain a motion.
I'd like to propose that we recommend to the city commission that they approve the special variance for file number 0-SUP-01 at 305 South Fifth Street.
I'll second.
We have a motion and a second. Is there any discussion? Any more questions? If not, I'll call the question. All in favor? Let it show unanimous. Okay, is that all that we have for tonight? No, I don't think so. Just,
One comment.
sorry.
Go ahead, comment.
Well, again, we are here tonight. An old friend of mine used to say that we are friends among friends, and that we're all here for I think for the betterment of Griffin, and that I'm really glad to see this many folks showed up. I guess this just tells me I'm a lifelong Griffinite, and it shows me that folks care. And this really, regardless of how this comes out, I'm really proud to see y'all here tonight, and I personally thank you for coming. Having said that, we have our second item. Let me read what it is, and I'll make a couple of other statements. Our second item is to consider a request to rezone approximately 4 acres of land from low-density residential B to medium-density residential for property located at 670 South Hill Street, submitted by 317 Deneri LLC.
So yes, as you indicated, this is a request to rezone approximately 4.296 acres at the corner of South Hill Street and Milner from low-density residential, LDRB, to medium-density residential. The plan is submitted, indicates quarter-acre lots with 15 building lots, which will ultimately be 15 dwelling units. And then the plan that was also submitted with it, the conceptual plan, that had a breakdown of the lots, providing for 3 of the properties to be at 1,800 square foot heated residential, and then a remainder of the properties to be at 2,050 heated square foot residential, and then the rest at 2,200 heated square feet residential. So there was a house design that was submitted along with it, which we forwarded you guys a copy of that as well electronically. Didn't come out too well, so we've included a copy of that on the back of the packet that's on the day's release. That way you can get a better view of that. So in review of the application, staff is making the recommendation to approve this conditionally. It is consistent with the comprehensive plan and the associated future land use map. And we are recommending the following conditions. That A, the development of the property is subject to the concept plan submitted, but shall be revised to accommodate area for stormwater detention and a total number of lots not to exceed 12. B, all houses shall be subject to the elevation of the submitted house plan. Any additional design shall be approved by staff prior to permitting, ensuring compliance with the applicant's original zoning presentation. C, heated square footages of all proposed dwellings shall be as presented in the application submitted by the applicant, but amended to 4 at 1,800 heated square feet, 4 at 2,050 heated square feet, and 4 at 2,200 heated square feet to reflect the 12 lot maximum.
Chip, let me insert this. This is something that you and I talked about. It's kind of something that maybe we can all get in our minds to make a distinction here. Is right now, this property, there could be 8 houses built.
Correct. Under the current zoning of LDRB, which the minimum acreage is a ½ acre and then a 80-foot lot width and road frontage. So in review, obviously, a basic math of the property, given that's 4 1/4 acres, and there's plenty enough road frontage both on the South Hill Street side and the Milner side that would allow for at least 8 lots.
Okay, so there's 8 lots that can be built there, houses that can
Correct,
be built.
as a matter of right.
And the city is recommending 12.
Correct.
And the applicant is wanting 15.
Correct.
So we're calling this really, as one of our dear friends that passed away a few weeks ago had a 9-9-9 plan. We're going to call this one the 8-12-15 plan.
Well, the concern over the 12 is really in review of the conceptual is that the 15 essentially would basically take up the majority of the property. In doing these developments for over 15 years, there will have to be an area for stormwater. So in the opinion of staff, capping it at 12 will leave room for the ability to be able to engineer that stormwater. And then also too, this is actually a nice segue into the final recommendation, which would be D. Vegetative buffer shall be established along South Hill Street rights of way to visually shield the rear of the dwellings from view. Existing vegetation is acceptable but must be marked on the development plan and staked with tree save during construction. If a replanted buffer, if to be a replanted buffer, a landscape plan shall be submitted and approved by staff prior to issuance of land use permit. So again, the idea of this too, and allowing the quarter-acre lots, and then capping at 12 is to provide for a design flexibility to provide for both stormwater detention and offer a possibility of the buffer along South Hill.
Chad, is South Hill Street the only area, neighborhood area that's going to be impacted by this? Will the houses along Milner and along South Sixth Street be impacted in any way?
I would contend not in the same way, given that the houses along South Hill, the thought process with respect to the buffer is to actually shield the backsides of the houses, both from view of South Hill and even for the residents' benefit.
I see where you've got the buffer on South Hill, but I don't see a buffer for the residences along Milner or South Sixth Street.
On South Sixth Street.
Yeah. Or where it goes back into, it backs up, I understand, into Emory Street, which is currently there. That's another intersection.
I mean, if that's a point of discussion that you guys would like to have.
Well, I mean, I just would like to know if they're, I mean, will they see each other? In other words, will the backyard of the house or the back side of the house touch the back side of the other houses or what? That are in
So
the area?
the backside of the houses, under the current plan for the 3 as currently submitted, would abut to 2 properties adjacent to the north.
Right,
and
since we
then-
don't have a plan, it's hard to visualize it.
Yes, ma'am, you guys have it. It was in the packet.
There's not a sketch of the property,
There's
that's
not.
proposed to be
Yes, it was
developed.
in the packet.
The lots, it's not in the packet.
It was in the packet. It's there.
The packet I got from you earlier in the week had it in it, this doesn't.
So we discussed with you guys.
I mean, what I think is a sketch, but if they're looking for
I
something
don't have
different,
it.
then
It's not there. There's a plan of what it is at present, but there's nothing there for proposal.
And I would also be interested in the development. I would hate to take a vote on something that might be conditional. I'd like to know the location of the detention pond, how that's going to affect the neighborhood and all of that as well.
So obviously, the location of the detention pond would be established based on the engineering. With that, you're kind of in a chicken and egg process at this point. So it's the pond typically is going to follow the lay of the land in your low points. There would be some cut and fill that more likely would take place. And that'd be something that would have to be established to the engineer. They would have to run their hydrology study on it. And to establish that.
And that's something that could be done between now and the,
It would have to be done.
Yeah.
At the point of construction drawings. And it would have to be approved. So their engineer would have to run the hydrology numbers and submit a hydrology study. And then that study would have to be reviewed by the city's engineers and approved.
does anybody know when the last time that home was occupied, was occupied as a residence, when maybe a homestead
It's only
exemption?
been a few months since Ms. Jordan moved out.
Okay,
She was there for quite some while after Mr. Jordan passed away. But she was very much sight impaired and had a difficult time. And I think she's returned to Butts County. From what I understand, I don't know that definitely. Someone else here may know where Ms. Jordan
okay,
is
so it's been
now. I
occupied.
think she's still living. Anybody know?
So it has been recently occupied as a residence?
Yeah.
Okay.
how long has it been owned by the current applicant?
June, I believe, June 13th, I think, maybe.
I don't know the exact date that the purchase.
Is the applicant available?
Yes, the applicant actually is going to speak next.
If they can answer that question.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. With that, I will at this point ask, is there anyone, the applicant would like to speak? If you would, everyone, if you'd like to speak tonight, if you would, identify yourself and your residence, please.
Good evening. My name is Lance Stillman Jr. I'm the developer for the Hill Street property. I kind of grew up here in Griffin. I actually grew up in Lamar County, but I attended First United Methodist Church and was an Eagle Scout here.
Get out here.
Okay. What about now? All right, good evening. My name is Lance Stillman Jr. I'm the developer of 670 South Hill Street. I grew up here in Griffin. I was a Eagle Scout here, Troop 2, attended First Methodist, and just grew up along East College with friends. Our project, we're proposing to do 15 units, quarter-acre lots, and our plans, they range from 1,800 square feet to 2,200 square feet. The style is a bungalow craftsman, which is consistent with the neighborhood and consistent with the square footage of the houses in the neighborhood. The design we chose was a cul-de-sac design, which we felt like that was the most efficient plan, and that allows us to naturally curb cut on South Hill Street. And we're going to try to preserve South Hill Street with a nice buffer, and along on Milner, we'd like to preserve the natural beauty of the property and with the camellias, hence its name, Camellia Hill. The community will be maintained by an HOA. I believe this, our project will bring value to the neighborhood, and all our past projects have been successes. I've done projects in Atlanta, St. Simons, and our last project, we're actually about to submit to an architectural digest, and I believe like to have the neighborhood support and let's work that way.
I do have one question for you, and I have seen some drawings, is that since it's a cul-de-sac, let me back up. This board has approved projects and plans that sounded so good going in, and they turned out not to be very good projects. So there is a reluctance that's built into what we're going to be asking, and that's by nature, and I think that that's what we should be asking. So just prefacing that. We had one situation to where there was a cul-de-sac and there was some off-street parking, and then those that, those that parked in the cul-de-sac kind of really made it maybe even a fire hazard. Would that be something that would be maybe in your covenants, is not to have parking? Have y'all considered that?
Yeah, we'll have restrictive covenants, limiting parking on the site, designating your parking at your residence.
So we can't hear you.
I think it went dead again.
Instead, yes, we plan on having restrictive covenants, designating each resident parking at their property.
Comes and goes, it seems to get better when you get closer to it, Mr. Tolan.
All right.
That's good. Is there a particular reason why you decided on 15? Is it, I mean, obviously from a developer standpoint, that's the maximum yield, and that's
Those numbers seem
fits
to,
the formula.
the project's feasible at that number. I looked at, we can fit 30 units on there, but we chose to do a medium density project, and 15 is the sweet spot where where everyone went.
And I guess you do realize that there's a lot of heritage in Griffin, and this is an older home that over the years, and we're always at the crossroads of what do we do as a community? Are we going to try to hold on to the past, or we want to move into the future? And I think that's probably where we are here tonight, and I think that's probably why most of the folks have showed up. But then again, it's the coming age, and that's probably a lot of decisions will be made based on that.
Right. Yeah, we believe it'll be great for the neighborhood, and it's spur new quality development for Griffin.
Have y'all done a traffic study
No, we haven't gotten that far yet.
Will there be a traffic study done?
I'll speak to my engineer about that, but
I mean, that's a very dangerous intersection. I got hit there one time and I'll never forget it. I was on Hill Street. Someone knocked me clear to the other side of Milton.
now we can look into doing a traffic study if
Well,
that's necessary.
Because I negotiate that intersection 2 to 6 times a day in my company. And if you're not very, very careful, things happen there.
Mhm.
Ms. Toller, is there anything you could say to, I think we probably got a good crowd here that aren't really in favor of this. Is there any words of encouragement that you could share with them and to make them maybe feel better about what you're doing?
Well, I just think it's, right now, as you can see, the house is beyond disrepair, and it would cost a fortune to bring in at least $200,000 to bring it back to today's standards. And it's just really not feasible for someone to buy and renovate and resell. But I feel like our project will, it'll help spur new quality development for the neighborhood and help bring value for the neighborhood.
How long was the property listed before y'all put a contract on it?
I believe it's about a week or so.
Week or so. There was, I had looked back on Zillow, I believe it was, to see that there'd been a number of contracts offered that were less than full asking price. And I think you did pay almost that.
Yeah, we paid asking price.
Yeah.
That was one of my questions. What was the purchase price of the home?
$340.
What is your intended price point of the 15 homes?
Yeah, so the square footage, they range from 1,800 square feet to 2,200 square feet. So our price point will be from the mid threes to low fours.
Well, I don't know if people checked on lumber prices recently. We won't hold you to that now because, those things have, it just seems like building is really kind of an odd point right now. I think there was an index that was released today of home builders, and that the National Home Builders Association had their highest confidence level in 22 years this month, the last month. So those building prices are probably going to start to increase.
Yeah, we've seen it. All right, well, and moving out of the way here. Or any other questions?
So the home drawing includes a garage. Is that something that in your HOA covenants you're intending to require, like in Peachtree City, you can't park a boat outside on the driveway. Are you intending to include stuff like that in your covenants that people have to park in their garages so they're not on the street?
We haven't gotten that far, but we'll look into that.
What we ran is a good reason for asking that, Mr. Stolen. We have a project down on Crescent Road that started out to be condominiums, wound up to be apartments because of a mistake somewhere in their layout. And they weren't really to be sold as condominiums, so they're renting them out. Most of these are 3 and 4 bedrooms. They got 1 car garage, so they got anywhere from 1 to 3 cars parked out on the street, and you can't even park. You can barely get anybody in and out of there. These big fire trucks, I don't think any of that. That is a concern about on-street parking with development, which has only one way in, one way out.
Right.
That was specifically what I was talking about a minute ago. That is foremost on our minds.
Okay. We'll look into that, consider having that in our covenants.
Okay.
I have an additional question. If you can't build 15 houses and you can't build 12, do you still intend to build 8?
Probably not. This numbers don't work 8.
So no construction if 8.
No.
Do you have any oil pre-sales?
We have a lot of interest right now, and just people looking to downsize and looking for a low maintenance home.
Convenient to shopping.
Yeah, just walking distance to downtown, which now, the new thing now is walkability.
Well, good. Well, any other questions for Mr. Tony?
I would think that a traffic study and perhaps a buffer and all those things would be presented to us prior to us voting for something that's going to impact a tremendous area of Griffin. Maybe just 4.8 something acres, but you know, to the historical district, it means a lot to preserve certain sections. And when I was a previous city commissioner, we used to get hit a lot of times with complaints about we do spot changes as far as the the housing and everything else. We don't stick with what we're zoned. What made you choose this particular piece of property?
Well, my father's a native here, and we've done development projects in Atlanta and St. Simons, and we came across this parcel, and it seemed like a pretty interesting deal. And you know, people that we know are downsizing and moving to closer to downtown. We felt like there's demand for what we're proposing to do, and so that's it's kind of made a
Right. Well, so you said you graduated from high school in Griffin. You know, South 6th Street is a very narrow street. Milner it's a little bit wider, but it goes up to a hill. And then you've got the tremendous hill on the other side, and then you've got the highway that comes up. I was on the highway side when I got hit. I have a hard time voting for rezoning with a lot of problems that haven't been answered yet.
Okay, well, we'll definitely do a traffic study if that will help our case.
Let me ask you, were there any other properties available in the city of Griffin that you considered? I'm not going to ask you to name
No,
those.
not that I'm aware of.
But
This
what
is
are-
the largest parcel in the city of Griffin, close to downtown.
Okay. Okay. Any other questions? Mr. Taylor? Thank you. Thank you very much. I appreciate you.
I think Mr. Galloway did it this way now.
Good evening, Mr. Chairman. Can everybody hear me? Because I'm not used to microphones. I'm Newton Galloway. I represent Mr. Toland. Mr. Toland's father and I were in high school together. He was a cool kid and I was not. But I'm happy to work with him on this. In the best of all worlds, you would prefer someone to buy this house and redevelop it or renovate it as a single house. The market has shown that's probably not going to happen. And you have an ordinance that allows up to 8 units on this property now. And the worst, I've heard questions about the cul-de-sac. The worst thing you could have would be 8 driveways, 4 coming on to South Hill and 4 going on the Milner. The cul-de-sac design.
Could you put them on South Hill right now?
I think you probably could, unless there would be a state road that would limit you.
That question has been raised specifically. So, but since that's not under consideration, that has been raised.
I want to address for tonight, I just want to address the staff report. And we provided Mr. Jacobs with a PowerPoint that's up here now. And Chad, are you in control of the PowerPoint? Okay, if you could go down 2 more slides, please. Keep going. All right, this is your flume. This is your future land use map. It's identified as residential property. Chad called it right. It's consistent with the flume. If you go to the next slide, please. This is your zoning map, and you can see the property located at the intersection of Milner and South Hill. And you have one block of LDRB property on the west side of South Hill, and then the rest of the LDRB property to the east, and then in the area where I live is all LDRB. Now, I'm going to come back to this in a second or in a minute, and you asked for things that could assuage the concerns of the neighborhood. And I'm going to use this map to come back to that. Can we go to the next slide, please? We did a study of this area shown in red regarding compatibility of house size, lot size, and property values. I believe that Mr. Jacobs did a similar analysis, though his study group was probably larger. So if we go to the next slide. This is a division of the houses within that area that are either below or above 2,000 square feet. And it's split pretty evenly on that. Go to the next slide. This is an analysis within that area of neighborhood lot size. By far and away, the bulk of the lots are between a 1/4 acre and a 1/2 acre. The demarc line is really right at a 1/3. But there are approximately, well, you can see the part that's 25.25 acres or less. You can see the section that's 0.5 acres or larger. Next slide, please. And this is the analysis of the area on tax valuation. Now, tax valuation and value and fair market value may be very different things depending upon whether you're paying your tax bill or selling your property. But for purposes of this, we use the tax analysis, and you can see that the bulk of the houses in the market area or the study area are valued for tax purposes under $200,000. Now, that tells you that what's proposed is consistent with your area in terms of square footage, in terms of property values, in terms of lot size. A little less on lot size, but not out of the ballpark. Now, Mr. Jacobs' report calls those numbers correct. Now, we are not dealing with an issue of whether this is compatible. What we're dealing with is an emotional attachment which is valid to an old house that was built in 1936. It sits on a beautiful lot and that has a beautiful vista going forward in front of it. I walk in front of it regularly. It sits on 4 acres in the city. That benefit is also the property's downfall because it is one of the largest undeveloped or housing tracts with one single house on it in the city. And it's located at a corner with a red light across from the church, across from multifamily, and a tract away from commercial. So that makes the property vulnerable. And the goal would be to protect the residential nature of South Hill. If you can't protect a single house on that single 4-acre lot, protect South Hill. And the only way you can do that is to provide for a single-family residential development that's decent size, decent architecture, decent landscaping on that property. The market, for whatever reason, has told us it is not going to be preserved as a single-family house. So, again, the goal would be protect South Hill from something that deters its single-family character. And South Hill has some factors that are impacting it. You've had encroachment of commercial down from the north below College Street. You have rental properties. Can we go back to the zoning map? You have some rental properties on the west side of South Hill that are not in the best shape. And then, like I say, you've got multifamily catty-cornered across. Last year, I watched one of the houses at the corner of, I think it's pronounced Rafe, and South Hill go on the market. And I will tell you, I was sort of cringing to see what was going to happen because those houses, particularly those houses, need to be preserved. They're older, the character is more significant. It appears that they are safe, but South Hill is vulnerable. And to protect residential development on South Hill, residential character on South Hill, and single family, decent residential, single family character. If this property can't be preserved and restored, we've got to look at what can be built within the parameters of what's appropriate. I understand the folks are upset over this big, beautiful house built in the 30s, running the risk of going away. I got it, I understand. I have worked on historic preservation issues here, some of which were not popular with Mr. Smith at various times. But we don't exist in a vacuum. And if the market tells us the property can't be preserved as is, then we should work to put something there to preserve the rest of the character of the neighborhood.
But the main purpose is to make money, right?
Well,
I mean.
if you go into business, Michelle, everybody wants to make money. You were in business. Everybody wants to make money. We're not charitable institutions. I'm not a charitable institution. The question is, do you just strip it off? Do you put garbage up there? Do you have a development that you approve and then contorts into something like you've got at Clearwater Creek, which is a substandard development around a development that the city approved, which was very good. Now, the only thing you can do, again, we can't dictate the market.
Right, and I agree with Clearwater Creek. It should never have developed, has dissolved into what it has dissolved now. When it was approved, it was prior to the financial depression that lasted for 8 years, and the man went into bankruptcy and sold it, and so then it was sold, I guess, all his covenants went with it. And I wonder about covenants with this particular property. And I can understand and I can appreciate the housing that you're talking about, because that's what spot zoning has done to Griffin all these years, is allowed nothing to be preserved except maybe a block here, maybe a block on the East College, and all of that area. I do have a problem with spot zoning, and that's what you're asking us to do with this.
No, it's not. It's residential, single family.
It's residential, but it's different.
I think the term here is what is the highest and best use for that property. That's one of those real estate terms.
The legal standard is, do you have reasonable economic use on the property it's on? That's the legal standard. We hear the term highest and best use, but the legal standard is reasonable economic use of zone. And that's a judgment call for y'all to recommend and the Board of Commissioners to address. I mean, we can make the case, and you've heard Mr. Tolan talk about his economics. You've heard we can make the case, but that call is yours, yours being the city's.
Mr. Callaway, I've heard some statements tonight, and I got to call in the question already. There's been stated that it would take $200,000 more to remodel the house. I have not been in the house in a couple of years, but I have been in that house more than once. I haven't been in the last couple of years. I was over there at one time when Mr. and Ms. Jordan were there, and I had been in previous times to that. And I have talked to people within the past couple of weeks since it became public knowledge. It just was being proposed. Mm-hmm. And these are people that were inside the house during the estate sale. And they tell me that the house is still in pretty good shape. There might be a roof leak, a small one here or there, but most of it is still in good shape. It appears that the plumbing and electrical and all that is up to current code, and that it really shouldn't take that much to refurbish that house to make a beautiful showplace. So I got to call that part of it into question already. I don't know what else I'll call it.
Well, Mr. Castillo, that's a fair question. I mean, I'll be honest with you, I have not physically been in the house. I have walked around it. The outside needs a lot of work. I am advised that all of the systems, in order to make it a modern residence, all of the systems have to be upgraded.
Well, my house applies to that too.
Well, so does mine. Mine was built in 47. But we're not buying a new piece of property to live in. You've got to assume that there is some level of improvement that's got to be done, and renovation's got to be done in the house. And whoever buys it, each person's gonna have a different threshold of what they're willing to do and live with.
It's not unprecedented to remodel a house, put it back on the market, or you live in. Dr. Fry's house on East College is a prime example. I don't know if it's sold in the last few days or what, but it's for sale sign now. And then the two houses you spoke of there, Griffin and Hill Street, they were refurbished, put back on the market, and now look like they're safe, as you mentioned yourself, and I'm so happy to see that.
It's gonna be
I've been down that street all my life. I've lived on Woodland Drive since I was 4 years old. And I used to know everybody that lived on every street within 5 blocks around me when I was a kid. I don't anymore, unfortunately. And I think that, I think there's gotta be a better use of this property than to cut it up into postage stamp lots, put minimum size, mini mansions on it. Mac mansions, I think is the term.
It can be. The economics of its renovation depend upon the purchase price and the asking price, and then what your renovation costs are. So you've got $350 roughly in it now. That's what the Tolans have. Let's assume it's got $100,000 to $150 in renovation. That puts you at $500. All right. You've got to make, and this is not a question for me, and it's not a question for any of you, you've got to make a judgment call. Are you willing to take the risk to make that investment on both components? And then, if that's what your goal is, to flip it, to see whether you can make money on that, or at least get your money back. Now, again, one of the key benefits to that house, but one of the key risks of that house is the size of the lot and the development that is already permitted under LDRB.
Did your study look at whether homes could sell for $350,000, $400,000 in this market?
That's what we did not. We looked just at the tax assessed value.
I'll have to say that that's for people that are downsizing. That's for Griffin. That's kind of a hefty number.
Well, as Mr. Jacobs can tell you, we learned in the county years ago that neither the size of the house nor the size of the lot make for a quality of development. The quality of development will depend upon the character of the neighborhood and the amenities that the Tolans put in the houses.
With the HOA, do you intend to anything other than covenants? Like, are there going to be a clubhouse or?
This is Ms. Bessel. First of all, I haven't discussed the covenants with them. I would assume the covenants would be standard. No boats, no rentals, no cars in the cul-de-sac, just park. With regard to other components beyond the standard things I would expect, of course, those are contract rights that the neighbors enforce themselves. But the beauty of this is the plan is for the HOA to be responsible for care and upkeep of the lots. At least that's the plan now. If you all have any other questions, I'm happy to sit down.
One last question.
Yes.
Could you give us your home address?
615 Terrace.
Okay, we needed that earlier. Okay.
I'm sorry, I
That's okay.
didn't.
You were on a roll, so
That's
thank you.
all right.
We appreciate that. Okay, at this point, we would like to ask for comments. And Jessica, did you want to speak now?
Yes, sir. Chairman, I have several written comments that were submitted by commission comments that we asked if you could not attend. So please send those in, but I do see a lot of you present in the audience, just those of you that I know. So what I will do first is read out the name and the address if it was provided. If you want to speak on your own behalf, then please let me know so I'm not reading this and you're standing up and reading it again, because I do see some of you that have submitted something in writing. The first one is Dorothy G. Eubanks, also known as D, at 716 Woodland Drive in Griffin. To all concerned, I am unable to attend in person due to work constraints as well as concern over social distancing guidelines in and outside the meeting room. As a longtime resident of Griffin with deep ties to and love for our community, I would like to express that I am against rezoning of the property on Milner Avenue. Growth is necessary but must be thoughtful and with careful consideration to our future. I do not believe that the proposed rezoning changes will benefit our community in any way, and in fact may be hurtful in the long run. You will hear from many speakers tonight that will speak for both sides of the issues. I ask each of you on the zoning committee as well as the city commissioners to ask yourself what is best for all of us, not just a select few. Jan Brannon. And she did not include her address. It has come to my attention that the developer that has purchased the 4 acres that Camellia Hill sits on is hoping to build 15 houses on these 4 acres and also tear down this historic home. What is he thinking of? Certainly only himself and lining his pockets with the profits he will make off the 15 houses. Do we even know what this development will look like? Hopefully not like the ones across the street from Crescent School. When will Griffin wake up and try and make a real difference in the quality of what comes into our sweet city? At the very least, the Georgia Trust should have been contacted. They could save this important home. We have lost so many, and our historic history is the one thing that could save this city by promoting it. Hate to see another treasure lost to a developer who could put these same boring houses anywhere else in Griffin so as not to destroy the historic Forest Hills community. This is outrageous. Kendall Jones, do you want to speak on your own behalf? Okay. To all board members, I would like to respectfully request all board members of both the Planning and Zoning as well as the City Board of Commissioners deny this rezoning request for Camellia Hill. I live on Woodland Drive and would be directly affected by the traffic, noise, and general decline in property value, having new construction homes in a very well-established community. While I am not a native of Griffin, Georgia, like so many in the area are, I have lived here for over 15 years. What drew me to this area was the established community and the character of the homes. Building 12 to 15 homes and tearing down an estate simply does not fit with what this neighborhood and the people of this community are all about. I hope you carefully consider this request. Thank you in advance. Wes and Sandra Long. Dear Commissioners and Zoning Board, my wife and I have owned our home on Milner Avenue for the last 20 years. We have seen the ownership of Camellia Hill change for the 3rd time with the latest purchase of the property that has led to this request for rezoning. We are, of course, very concerned with the proposal at hand. This property sale closed in roughly just the past 60 days, and the owners are already trying to essentially double the number of homes originally proposed. To see such a change in such a short time makes me very doubtful that anything we've heard about the types of homes and their proposed value has any real meaning as it relates to the proposed plans. This has many of us in our community leery that this has become a bait and switch and that the developers are acting solely on maximizing their profit and not what is in the best interest of the neighborhood. This development, as it has been laid out in this rezoning request, clearly does not match or meet the aesthetic of our Forest Hills community. While most of us would hope the home could be preserved, I respect that the investors who purchased the property should be allowed to develop it based on the current zoning that is in place. Developing an offering of 8 homes as originally zoned gives our community the best opportunity that these residences will enhance our property value and not diminish the appeal of our cherished neighborhood. Finally, I would ask that you consider what the developments of the Gardens and Crescent Village have done to the area. As you enter Crescent Village, Wisteria has taken over the numerous lots that have gone undeveloped. The unmanaged overgrowth now extends to the backside of the properties of the Gardens. Both developments have numerous homes that are overoccupied and cars are routinely parked on the streets. Trailers and landscaping equipment are often stored in front of the homes, are nestled in cul-de-sacs of areas that have not been developed. Please help us protect our community from further unnecessary overdevelopment. Thanks to all of you for hearing our concerns. Norma Richardson. To whom it may concern, I had hoped to attend the meeting this evening. However, due to the fact that the request to have the meeting moved to a larger location that could accommodate more people safely was denied, I am writing my comments via email. I am opposed to the rezoning of the property located on the corner of South Hill Street and Milner Avenue, Magnolia Hill, 670 South Hill Street. I believe it will have a negative impact on my neighborhood and those surrounding. There are many concerns that some include an increase in traffic, clear cutting the property for construction, and detracting from the character of the neighborhood. In addition, during the construction phases that will take quite some time, there will be disruption in our neighborhood. One of the beauties of our neighborhood is how quiet it is. That would be definitely in. Sorry, I'm just reading these as they're written. I'm a homeowner and resident at 707 Woodland Drive. I grew up in the house, and when I decided to move back to Griffin in the early 2000s, I moved back in the house. I'm also a downtown business and property owner. I ask you to consider the concerns and wishes of those who are directly affected by this proposed action. Thank you. Anissa Curtis, 138 Milner Avenue. Dear Zoning Commission and City Commission, the proposed rezoning would directly impact me and the value of my new home, and I write to oppose the proposed rezoning for the reasons outlined below. I am new to Milner Avenue. I closed on my home in June at what I consider to be a fair price to be a resident of a beautiful historic neighborhood. At the time that I chose my home, I had no idea that a developer would seek to raise a historic home and put a high-density development off of what I considered to be a quiet residential street. I never intended to live in a crowded subdivision and could not have imagined that 15 homes on quarter-acre lots would be in my neighborhood. I'm approximately 2 months into a mortgage at the value of the home I purchased, which will likely drop even if the Camellia Hill property is developed consistent with current zoning. But if the area is zoned for 15 houses on 4 acres, it will drop even more significantly. Had I known what was coming, I would never have purchased my home. Part of my expectations in choosing my home was that traffic was light, even considering that Milner is a cut-through between East College and Maple Drive. My extended family has small children who visit me, and I fear for the increased traffic that will come with the development and for the safety of my family. Those who have purchased property in and around Maple Drive and East College did so at a price and with the expectation of being in a beautiful historic neighborhood in the city of Griffin. A single group of developers should not be allowed to profit at the expense of all of the other homeowners in the neighborhood. All of us who have sacrificed to own a home in the neighborhood have taken pride in our residence, and now we are finding out that the neighborhood in which we may one day wake up is not the one we dreamed of. I respectfully request that the change in zoning be denied. Anna Burns, 403 East College Street. Dear City of Griffin officials, please do not rezone the property at the corner of South Hill Street and Milner Avenue. The development of 8 1/2 acre properties on that site complies with the current zoning and can be infilled to fit the neighborhood. Thank you. Paper Burns, 403 East College Street. Dear City officials, I am against the rezoning of the property at South Hill Street and Milner Avenue. I would like to see Camellia Hill saved because of the historic nature of the property and the historic value to the Griffin community. If that is not possible, I believe that the 8 houses allowed with the present zoning would be quite adequate for that neighborhood. Please leave the zoning as it currently exists. McAllister Isaacs III. I am opposed to the proposed rezoning of Camellia Hill. The proposed density would downgrade our neighborhood and further crowd Crescent Road School. Jim and Tessa Watson. We are against rezoning of this property. Crowding too many small houses on this property would lessen the quality of life in this neighborhood. As longtime residents of South Hill Street, just a block away from this property, we are aware of how much traffic has increased in the last 40 years. Truly saddened to see this property destroyed, but we are more concerned with the increase of traffic flow that will be added to the neighborhood. Drew Payne. Do you want to speak or do you want me to read?
You're probably tired of talking.
Well, I'm going to keep reading. Y'all will go last. No, I'm going to keep reading and y'all will go last. So if you want me to read it, I can. Or if you want to speak, I'll put it to the side. Okay? This is another one from Jen and Tessa Watson. It's a little bit different, so I will read it again. We are against rezoning of this property. As longtime residents of South Hill Street, just a block away from this property, we are aware of how much traffic has increased in the last 40 years. Truly saddened to see this property destroyed, but we are more concerned with the increase of traffic flow that will be added to the neighborhood. Kenneth Moore?
I'll speak later.
Okay. Vicki and Ken Bozeman? Dear Commissioners, please consider our request to keep the zoning as is for Camellia Hill. We all realize that the buyer has every right to do as he pleases with his purchase. We cannot tell him what to do with something he purchased. We can, however, as a community, stop the rezoning request for this land. Please ensure the quietness and calmness of our neighborhood and keep the zoning the way it is at this time. We know that the home is going to be torn down. That is hard to see, but it is going to happen. As our elected commissioners, we hope that you will consider these many requests to stop the rezoning of this property. It is zoned for no more than 8 homes on half-acre lots. Please do not approve a substandard subdivision and make us lose the small town atmosphere that is an attraction to people who choose to move here. Thank you for your time, and we are in hopes that you will all do the right thing for Griffin. James Campbell. James Campbell is at 838 Hanover Drive. Vote no on rezoning the property at South Hill and Milner to higher density. Isaac Milton is on North Brookwood. I've got a few concerns about the rezoning of Camellia Hill to allow for smaller houses on smaller lots. There are already several subdivisions close to the neighborhood with larger, less expensive houses than the developer is planning that are having trouble selling, like Coldwater Creek and Crescent Lane. In addition, there are multiple townhouses like those off of South Hill Street and off of Grandview that are not at capacity. If the developer purchased the house with the understanding that the existing historic structure can be torn down and the lot can be subdivided into 8 houses/lots, then I don't know that anything can be done to stop that from happening. But seeking to double the number of houses on that small of a property is unacceptable and could set a precedence for other ill-conceived developments in the neighborhood. I don't understand, based on the comps, why the developer thinks that they will be able to sell 1,400 square foot houses for excess of $300,000 in a neighborhood where houses twice that size sell for the mid-200s. I think that we're going to have to deal with a bunch of small unsold houses driving down property values in the neighborhood, and that is not in the city's best interest, especially when a large portion of the tax base lives nearby. Also, if there are members or relatives of the city council/zoning board who would financially benefit from this subdivision, then I think that they need to consider recusing themselves from the proceedings. The next is Bill and Louise Baldwin from Hilltop. Please maintain the current zoning requirements. There are other high-density areas in the neighborhood. Quality, not quantity. Thank you. Louisa Milton. The city of Griffin is presently spending a great deal of grant money on the downtown beautification project, which makes it obvious that the beauty and history of the old historic area is of great value to Griffin. The area for which the rezoning is requested is in the center of this area between South Hill and Maple Drive. The impact of the requested rezoning would show a total disregard for preservation of this district. The beauty of our historic homes and areas has long been one of our strong points. I ask those whose decision this is to make to continue to support our historic value in Griffin. It is far more valuable than any subdivision to our community. Joyce Darden. I am opposed to the rezoning of the property at 670 South Hill Street and building 12 to 15 homes on this property, which is at the corner of South Hill Street and Milner Avenue. I am also opposed to the tearing down of the beautiful 84-year-old historic home on this 4-acre property. All of the homes on Milner Avenue, South Hill Street, and the surrounding area are at least 50 years old, and some are as old as 1867. Most of the homes are unique, charming, and beautifully designed. All are on at least 1/2 acre of land, which further enhances their beauty and uniqueness. This is the reason I purchased a home in this area. If possible, this beautiful home at 670 South Hill Street should be restored. It is certainly a one-of-a-kind home with its huge pillars gracing the front of the home. Camellias had at one time surrounded it, thus giving it a name, Camellia Hill. Placing 12 to 15 homes on this property will significantly detract from the beauty and charm of the area. It is important that the city preserve this historic area for its uniqueness, charm, and gracefulness. If this property is rezoned, allowing properties on 1/4 acre to be built, it sets a precedent for other developers to come into the neighborhood and do the same. It will ruin the character of the neighborhood. The proposed rezoning and subsequent development will likely lead to decreased property values of surrounding homes. The significant increase in homes from the proposed development will lead to increased traffic, congestion, safety issues, and noise in the surrounding area. The significant increase in homes in the area will decrease the natural habitat of wildlife in the area, and the loss of vegetation will increase air pollution as well. 99% of the people living in the neighborhood and surrounding neighborhoods whom I have petitioned concerning the tearing down of the home and rezoning the plot on 670 South Hill Street are opposed to it for the above reasons. I respectfully request that the commissioners carefully consider the negative impact that such rezoning will have on this area and the city of Griffin. Douglas Tingle or Emily Tingle, 1051 Pine Valley Road. As native Griffinites and current homeowners in the Forest Hill area, we are very concerned about the plans to demolish another historical home in our city. Even more concerning is the plan to rezone and build multiple houses on this 4-acre parcel. Per our research, we believe the original zoning is for one residence on a 4-acre lot. The purpose of the zoning is to preserve a particular neighborhood to protect the homeowners and prospective buyers to assure them it would remain that way. A recent count of homes for sale in the 3rd Ward / Crescent area under $200,000 is around 20, with 10 more under $300,000. There are multiple homes under construction in the Crescent area on County Line and in the Coldwater Creek subdivision. There doesn't seem to be a housing shortage in the area. The parcel of land in question is 4 acres. How will it conceivably have up to 15 houses with paving and parking built? How will the city provide the necessary utilities? Also of concern is the aging infrastructure. Is the current sewage system able to handle that many houses in an area meant for one? At present, when Crescent School is in session, the heavy traffic from Crescent is diverted to Milner Avenue. The traffic congestion on Milner Avenue will be a problem. At the very least, cutting down the beautiful old oaks and leveling another beautiful historical home in the city is a travesty. Griffin has been our home for over 60 years. Griffin's long-beloved neighborhood of Forest Hills will lose its beauty and character if we continue down this path. We in this neighborhood all bought our homes in confidence that it would remain a low-density residential area. We ask you to seriously consider not changing the zoning for this property in our neighborhood. There is so much to consider other than a few who may profit from this poor decision. Only a few more. Dear Mayor Holberg City Commissioners, Katie Miche Inglis, 909 East College Street. Dear Mayor Holberg and City Commissioners, I certainly empathize with all of you regarding the task at hand. The vitriol on social media has left no one unscathed. We all have seen the decay of Camellia Hill over the years, and it has been a shame. So many of our old historic buildings and homes have been demolished, of which I believe has been the fuel that has stoked the fire of saving Camellia Hill. It was not too long ago that exceptions were made to structurally change the roof of the old Griffin Hotel, completely in violation of any aesthetic quality or historical significance. It was done so the structure could be fully restored to create a boutique hotel downtown. At that time, the reasoning was that it would create jobs. Let me remind you that the hotel is currently the home of a haunted house. No such boutique hotel was ever established. What is to come of Griffin? How are we to set an example for other communities in regards to historic preservation? I do believe we are at a crossroads, and it will be up to you to decide which road we are to take. How has Madison, Georgia been able to keep the historic elements of their downtown? They seem to thrive and have set themselves apart among other cities in our state. All these questions must be addressed, and it has been, to pardon the phrase, a long time coming. I urge you to decline the rezoning request for 14 homes on the current site of Camellia Hill, and that a plan be set forth that includes green space, fewer homes, and perhaps the saving of Camellia Hill. The current plan is disastrous. Many years ago, I signed a petition to save the Fox, the beautiful theater in Atlanta. Please save Camellia Hill. Now is your time to set an example for others in our community that Griffin is ready to move forward with a regard for its past. This is the first step. Kind regards. Bill and Carol Bowen, 920 Maple Drive. It is regrettable that Camellia Hill was not protected historically from destruction and will become yet another historical casualty of the wrecking ball in Griffin. Beyond that tragedy, I respectfully request that rezoning to increase the density be denied. There was a reason for the zoning in the first place, and there is no good reason to change it now. Please vote no to this rezoning. Last one, Jeff and Jennifer Hoffman at 721 Woodland Drive. I'm adamantly opposed to the rezoning request for the Camellia Hill house on the corner of South Hill and Milner. The houses will not fit with the quaintness and look of the neighborhood. This was the main reason we chose to move here a year ago. There are empty lots sitting on Crescent and Woodland that have been empty for way too long. Why would we want another developer to start something that would drop our property values and potentially never get finished like the other neighborhoods less than half a mile from this proposed site? The The Camellia Hill house is in need of work, but beautiful nonetheless. Please vote no to the zoning request. The end.
The end.
Thank you for that.
Yes, sorry.
Very much, Ms. O'Connor. You gotta need some of that water. You got that guy up all that.
Thank you for taking those, was it 31 comments? 32? At this time, I'd like to ask, is there anyone that would like to come forward and to speak? Now we have Mr. Payne and Mr. Moore. Y'all would like to speak?
Yes, sir.
Okay, well, since they were recognized, Mr. Payne, please, if you would state your name and your address to us.
My name is Drew Payne, and I live at 434 East College, and I own the house at 651 South Hill. My sister lives there. And I think that we're all here for the same reason, because we want to see Griffin, we want to see it grow, we want to see it prosper. I know Miss Joanne from when she was city commissioner. We came, and it was some historical history. Mr. Hill, I used to work for you. I don't know if you remember when I was in school, when you were the manager of the Peachtree City Commercial Bank. I consider Jessica a friend, Newton a friend, Kenny a friend. I have respect for what Mr. Tolan wants to do, and I believe he probably has what he thinks is Griffin's best interest in his mind. And I wish him all the success in the world, but with 8 houses on the half-acre lots as it's zoned right now, Newton, I consider him a friend. I was taking copious notes, and I did write a response too. But I noticed some things that were said. The old house, yes, I love old architecture. I live in a house that was designed in the 1800s, redone in the 1920s. I would love to see nothing more than that house saved. But when someone buys a piece of property, we can't tell them, oh, you can't tear the house down. And I don't think y'all have that power. But with it, we respect the past, but we look to the future. And I'm all for development. I think 8 houses there that are nice, fitting in the neighborhood. I think that's wonderful. Newton had quoted the price, or Mr. Tolan had, of the 350 plus. I wish him luck, and I don't know if he's going to do owner financing or they're going to have to go through a bank. I mean, Mr. Hill, you work for a bank, and you know banks look at comps around the area for appraisals. And I don't know if a week is enough to give it to see if somebody would want to live there, but that's not really in question here. And then if we looked at, they paid $350 for the house, and the figure of $100,000 was thrown out. And I bet if we looked at square footage, $350 plus $100 is probably less per square feet than the $300,000 for the $2,000. I'm not a mathematician, but I guess here, what I'm looking at is the zoning, and the zoning is there for a reason. And we threw up a big piece of land. I couldn't look at it. I'm a layperson. Y'all are the professionals. Maybe y'all could, but I couldn't really see how big of a swath that was. And I would look at more what's contiguous, like what's touching Camellia Hill. Are those quarter acres? Are those half acres? Would it be in blending with it? So that is my piece, but I was called, anyone that opposed it, I heard the terms ignorant and uninformed as to what the future wants on housing. Well, after hearing what I've heard tonight, I feel more ignorant and uninformed, because listening to y'all's questions to the developer, which I thought were very good questions, and I as a layperson didn't walk away with a lot of answers to those questions, other than 15 houses, that's what makes sense financially, and that nice overlay that if I had hired a Georgia Tech student, could have probably put that on that piece of land. So that is my piece. Thank y'all, and I appreciate what y'all do. I don't envy you your position.
Thank you for your comments. Mr. Moore?
Yes. First of all, thank you for your time. My name is Kenneth Moore, a lifelong resident of Griffin, Georgia. Currently reside at 672 Maple Drive, the old Dunaway house, dead end to Maple there from Milner. Lived there for 5 years. Prior to that, lived 17 years at 541 South 6th Street. So for the last 22 years, my family and I have grown up within 1,000 feet of the property in the subject here. I'm also an architect, registered architect here in Griffin, been practicing for 25 years. I know the neighborhood, I know design, I know planning. Historical structures is one thing I enjoy doing. A past member of the Griffin Historic Preservation Commission, past board member of the Griffin Spalding Historical Society, recently won awards for historic preservation projects. As much as I love Camellia Hill and would love to see that preserved, he has a right to his property. He purchased it. He wanted to tear it down. As much as I hate that, he has the right to do so. So I'm here to talk about the rezoning effort, not necessarily the historic structure. But don't get it confused how much I appreciate the historic structure. A few things I'd like to look at, in particular, the Unified Development Code, the code that we all go by to make decisions. First of all, first paragraph of section 708, intent of MDR. I won't read the whole thing, but it says the intent of MDR is a transition between high-density residential and low-density residential. The map that was shown is all low-density residential. Nowhere nearby is any high-density residential. So this is in fact spot zoning for this piece of property to give it the intent use that the developer would like. Section 405 of the UDC lists criteria for which the board is to use when determining if a property is to be approved. It states that all proposed rezonings of property shall be evaluated in light of the following standards. I'd quickly like to go over a few of those. I won't hit each one of those, but a few. 405A, the standard is existing uses and zoning of adjacent property. A response there. All current adjacent properties are zoned LDRB and are single family dwellings. Any change of zoning will be spot zoning and be a dangerous precedent. I've recently spoken with actually the developer's father, Mr. Tolan, this morning, and they had also looked at adjacent properties of buying more than just the 4 acres. So there is a concern that, you know, what happens if this sets a precedent? What happens further on down Maple? You've set it up in MDR now to prevent, you know, what prevents the next person from coming in and doing MDR next to it. Section 405B, the standard. Whether the property to be affected by the zoning proposal has a reasonable economic use as currently zoned, although, and this is important, although such use may not be its highest and best potential use. Response. This clearly states that the rezoning as a means to increase its best economic potential use should not be done. The property under current zoning has a reasonable economic use. Any good plan to increase the density above its current half-acre zoning should not be considered. One lot right now divided into 8 has an increased economic potential there. It is not the zoning board's responsibility to provide him with the greatest economic use. Section 405C, standard. Whether the zoning proposal will permit a use that is suitable in view of the use and development of adjacent and nearby property. Response. The zoning request will permit a use that is not suitable in view of the use and development of adjacent and nearby property. This is evident by the number of those who have just signed the petitions and are here tonight. And responses that Jessica read earlier. 405D. The relative gain to the public as compared to the hardship imposed upon the individual property applicant by maintaining the existing zoning. Response. Any hardship imposed to the developer is by his own doing. The property was zoned LDRB when it was purchased. The city has no responsibility to grant that just because he would like that. He purchased it under those conditions. And last of these, 405G, any environmental, historic, cultural, or aesthetic concerns unique to the subject property or proposed use, and how applicant proposes to mitigate any negative impacts on surrounding properties and the community at large. My response. The developer has intentionally chosen not to mitigate any of the numerous negative impacts on surrounding properties or neighborhood. I personally contacted Mr. Tolan, senior, not junior, yesterday to discuss this proposal and offered up a solution. As being an architect, I like to solve problems. I saw the great divide between the two. I was looking for a solution that everybody could be in agreement with. I actually came up with a solution. I'm welcome to share it if y'all are ever interested. came with a solution which I believe had the support of city staff and key persons of the neighborhood. Upon meeting with Mr. Tolan this morning, I was told that any option to provide less than 15 houses on the 4-acre lot was not an economically viable solution to him. I was told on multiple occasions that he is in this just for the money, even referring to the Milner development as horse expletive. It is obvious that he has no interest in mitigating any negative impacts that his project creates, only in for the money and what he can get out of it. No intention for how the community feels. If the developer's application has not provided sufficient responses to the standards above, and in my practice in the past with some developments we did for rezoning, one in particular, 2 years ago, we specifically addressed each of those items. Knowing that's what you're evaluating on, we address those. If the developer has not provided sufficient responses to the standards above, then no way should the zoning board approve any zoning request. Thank you again for your time, and I sincerely request that the current request for rezoning be denied.
Thank you. At this point, I'd like to recognize Mr. Kirby Sisk. Would you like to, I understand that you're the chosen one here.
Apparently so. Right.
Would you like to speak?
I would.
And I would say that I think that your voice is probably for many people that are here.
It is.
And if they would like to speak after you, then that would be permitted, but.
Hopefully my comments will cover most of it.
Okay, good, great.
Can everyone hear me all right?
Right.
Kirby Sisk.
You don't hear Mr. Sisk back there? Mr. Sign.
My name is Kirby Sisk. I live at 132 East College Street. I was born in Griffin and moved back home about 5 years ago to fix up a home that I turned into a bed and breakfast and event space here in Griffin. I've done very well with it. I'm basically coming here representing quite a number of longtime Griffin residents. Like many of you, my phone, email, and Facebook has probably gone off the hook for the last week talking to a lot of different people. So what I'm trying to do here is to sort of consolidate that into a few points that we can use moving forward to kind of understand where everyone feels in this topic. I have a few documents that I'd like to actually submit for the record as well at the end of my statement. One of them is a petition. We've got 560 signatures from people in the community that do feel that this rezoning should not be allowed for various reasons. There are 7 of them here that I'd like to relate to you. First and foremost, and some of these have been stated as already, spot zoning has been mentioned. Contiguous properties around this are not zoned for.
Can I ask you one question? Are those 560 signatures all Griffin, Spalding County residents?
Yes, they are.
Okay, good.
Yes, they are. We have online and electronic, online and paper versions of those to be correlated. So, okay, I'll get those from you. Where was I? Spot zoning, that's been mentioned. The danger with this is, again, the zoning is for a region, multiple properties. And if we pick a specific property and change that zoning, that's going to set a dangerous precedent for the person a block away that wants to do that later on. How do you tell that person no when you said yes to this property? I'm going to also preface my statements too. We talked about emotional attachments to the home and structure itself. Almost without fail, people have come to me and mentioned that they love to keep the house, they love to keep the landscape, but at the same time, they know this is a private property matter. The home's been purchased and they have complete right to do with that property as they please within the zoning and the laws that regulate that activity. So no one has come really out and say that we just got to keep the house, all conditions are off the table. So beyond that, traffic impacts were mentioned. As was said earlier, the state highway on one side of the property is very busy. Miller Avenue is a cut through from Maple Drive and other communities to get to that state highway. And also Crescent School uses that as a detour for overflow traffic for parents dropping off and picking up their children. A lot of traffic impacts there. Also mention that it sets a dangerous precedent, not only the rezoning, but also the type of development that's going in here. This is kind of a new urbanism, kind of a approach to housing where you want a lot of homes close together, subdivision, cul-de-sac kind of approach. Very popular in a lot of places, not in this particular neighborhood. So if this is allowed to happen here, how would you then prevent that from expanding to other neighborhoods very close to this same development? Also, the business case. We feel a lot of people are expressing concern over the resale prices of this. That bill is a business case that is overly optimistic from the beginning. The realtors that I know and have contacted and spoken with about this and also previously, typically you're selling homes in Griffin for somewhere around $100 a square foot. And to suggest that you're going to get $200 to $250 a square foot for a home like these is just not grounded in reality. And I've had a lot of people raise that concern. Well, why is this important? It's important because that bill is an overly optimistic business case that decisions are based upon. And that gets us into the trouble that we may have sounded like we have had with some of the other developments around here that started out really great and wound up not being so great. So there's that concern. Infrastructure concerns, we've mentioned some of those. We've talked about stormwater. We're uncertain if the plumbing, sewer, power systems that are in this area can handle this amount of property, this amount of new dwellings on this particular property. We'd like to see that studied in more detail to better understand really what that impact is. Environmental concerns, I've had a lot of, believe it or not, residents bring up the fact that those that walk by and run by and drive by this property regularly see deer, fox, eagles, hawks, rats, you name it. There's a ton of wildlife that's on this property that if you scrape it, that's all going somewhere. So there's a big concern that that's going to impact the quality of life and the property values of the people that live in the neighborhood. And finally is the architecture and the landscaping. The elevations that we've seen are nice looking properties. They're homes that people could be proud of if you purchase them, but they just don't match what's in the neighborhood. And you're going to detract from the property values and the quality of life of the neighbors in this area by putting those homes in this location. Same goes for the landscaping. Typically this neighborhood sees azaleas, camellias, crepe myrtles, old growth trees, and so forth. To replace that with less expensive convenience shrubbery like Leland cypresses and other things that provide screening, yes, but look starkly different than what's existing in this neighborhood so far. There's a lot of concern that that's going to just really create something that's totally different from any of the architecture and landscaping in this area. And that pretty much wraps up the 7 points I wanted to make. I did have some closing remarks. Again, I'll reiterate that no one here is trying to tell a property owner what to do with their property within the bounds of zoning and laws in place. Almost without fail, everyone raises the point that they'd love to see the home restored, they'd love to see the mature landscape preserved, but recognize the fact that that ship may have sailed and it is a private property matter, and if it must be developed, it must be developed. So there's not quite the emotional attachment without also some reason applied to that, realizing that we are where we are with this. And finally, we need to, over the years, we've lost a lot of buildings and homes and other structures here to parking lots, and there's all kinds of things that have happened in Griffin over the years. We've lost a lot of homes. And we need to step up and be stewards of that, right? Before we wind up having just a massive suburban sprawl like I see everywhere I go for my job across the country. And people are escaping that to find communities like this that have some character and some culture, that they want to spend money for a house, they want to raise families and so forth. So we need to consider that as well. And the last comment I would make, I definitely agree with Mr. Tolan and Mr. Galloway that we need to be concerned about Hill Street and all of these neighborhoods as far as proper development, improper development, use, and so forth. But there are a lot of people who do already. And I think it's also incorrect to say that there are people who have not moved here to restore these homes and live in them, and also flip them and sell them again on the market. I can rattle off a dozen people right now that have done that in the last 2 or 3 years. So that is happening. I know of a home right on Hill Street that has occurred to. I walked through it before I bought my house, and it was more of a project than I wanted to tackle, but there was a couple from Marietta that moved down here and bought it. It's a beautiful home today. Done wonderful things with that. So with that, I'll conclude my comments. I would like to, I don't know if I submit something to for the record here. I've got an outline of my comments. I'd like to provide it to me. Okay. I have a copy of our petition here with the signatures on it. I'd like to submit that for the record as well. And lastly, I've got a presentation that originally was a Facebook post that outlined about 40 or some odd homes that we've lost over the last 30 or 40 years. I'd like that to go into the record as well. I will do that. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Okay.
And that concludes my comments. Thank you very much for your time.
At this, we'll come back to that, but this, if y'all would like, we can take just a very brief break if you would like, if you'd like, or if you'd need. If not, we can continue without Mr. Castile. He needed a break, so, okay. With that, I will ask, are there any others that would like to speak? Okay, and I will just take this gentleman here. If you would please come forward and state your name and address.
Ron Hoffman, I live at 130 Milner Avenue, directly across the street from the Camellia Hill property. And my family also owns the Walker Hill property that is 10 undeveloped, relatively undeveloped acreage on the other side of the street from Camellia Hill as well. The first thing I wanted to point out was the land use map that was shown earlier. We had our 10 acres rezoned a couple of years ago. That is all LDRB. That is all low density residential. It was not shown on that map. So the proposal would really be a medium density island in a sea of low density residential. So that needs to be noted for the record. I also know 2 other people that would have been potential buyers of the property that wanted to live in it, renovate it. The buyer had already bought the property, but it was still, the signs were there. And so that wasn't able to happen. But with our Walker Hill property, we have personally put in over $100,000 into the property. It has been in our family since 1905. It is not the same house and the same look as it was when I was growing up and went to go visit my grandparents there. But we've fixed it up into a beautiful property. We've sought to preserve history, restore history, and make it available for everybody so that the next generation can understand the history of where we've come from. And we certainly would love to see that happen with this property as well. Thank you.
Good, thank you. Yes, sir.
Thank you. My name is Chase Neal. I live at 132 Milner Avenue. Probably nobody's going to be more affected by this decision more than my family from a quality of life perspective. So I felt like I'd be remiss not to stand up for my family. I live right across from the Camellia Hill residence. It was one of the reasons that we bought our house 4 years ago. I mean, it's a beautiful property, landscaping, tons of landscaping, natural green space. It was, I got 3 big windows in the front of my house, so I know that's going to affect my property value no matter what happens with this decision. But I'm also very concerned about the traffic and the safety concerns. I have a 6-year-old daughter, and they recently, a few years ago, built a sidewalk on Hill Street so she could walk to school, which was great, but the traffic's still so bad my wife won't even walk her to school in the mornings. And people mentioned that they use Milner as a cut-through lane, so we get a lot of traffic coming through there. I really don't feel comfortable letting my daughter play in the front yard by herself. There's a lot of traffic comes through there. It's 25 miles per hour. Often people are going 50 plus. I live at the top, right at close to the red light, and probably 50 feet, they're already going 50 plus. So it's concerning with that. And also, as I understand, the street from this new subdivision is going to come out right across the street from my house. So not only am I going to have my aesthetics destroyed, my property value, it's going to be hard to sell when you're looking at a bunch of cookie cutter houses across the street, but also all that traffic, funneling out right into my front yard. I'm really concerned with the safety and well-being of my daughter as well. So I just wanted to point that out, and I just felt like I needed to, speak up for my family. So thank y'all for your time.
Well, thank you. Appreciate your words. Is there anyone else?
I'd like to say something, please. I do not
Do
live.
you,
I'd be happy.
sir, would you yield to her?
I apologize.
No, I'm sorry, go ahead. Yes, ma'am, please come forward. You're standing.
Hello, my name is Lisa Spears, and I live at 202 Sylvan Lane. There we go. And I moved there because it was a safe neighborhood for me. I was diagnosed with multiple sclerosis a little over 18 years ago, and I do live alone, and I love to walk, and Milner Avenue is close enough for me to walk. I no longer have a service dog. She got a little too old, but I just wanted to let you know that the traffic would be a great problem for me. Things about multiple sclerosis, you tend to lose your balance. And so I'd like to have some slower, less traffic streets to walk on. But I just kind of wanted to make y'all aware of, I chose that house to come to, and I love it down here. I love the architecture. I love the history. It means a lot to me. And I thank y'all for letting me speak.
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you, sir.
Well, thank you very much. Thank you
Absolutely.
for your words.
And I apologize.
Here the other 12, they're residents. I'm Dr. Rolko Lightly, I live at 628 Southfield Street. So we got here in 91 and then acquired the home we live in. We renovated the home and we really enjoyed that process. Something that we have really noticed was the increased traffic compared to 91 on Southfield Street. So I can't imagine what this addition would do further as far as the traffic and noise and that sort of thing. And you already had much more erudite presentations about the negative things that might happen. So I'm just going to add my comment that I feel like it would be a negative impact to violate the current zoning for the property. And with that, I'll just say thank you very much.
Mr. Gilliland, I think you've done a wonderful job with your home there. I think that as I grew up in that neighborhood too, and there were old tales about that being well, I don't want to be politically incorrect, but that was part of the Civil War heritage. Am I correct?
Yes, sir. The house was built in 1847, the first story. Warren Scoville gave me something about the story comes from Griffin. And it was I didn't know this when I acquired the property, but later I found out it was a battlefield hospital, but it was also General Wheeler's headquarters. And I trained in the Medical College of Georgia in Augusta. There's Wheeler Road in Augusta. I didn't realize who he was until he had several horses shot out from under him during the Civil War, and he was considered a very courageous general. But yes, I was real surprised and happy to hear about that being, battlefield hospital and being a doctor. Thank you.
Thank you. Appreciate those words. Anyone else that would like to speak? Okay, yes, ma'am.
My name's Amanda Spravery Creswell. I live at 727 Clay Street.
Ma'am, can you get a little?
Oh, I'm sorry. My name's Amanda Spravery Creswell, and I live at 727 Clay Street. And I just wanted to point out two things. I've heard a lot of people talk about how so many of the historic homes have been destroyed in Griffin, so I just want to put a number with that. Since 1970, we've lost since 1970, we've lost almost 85% of our pre-World War II homes, so those that were built in 1939 or earlier. So the Camilla House is in that remaining 15% of homes that we still have here in Griffin, and I get that it's up to them to do what they want to do. And then the second point is that they've also mentioned some of the other undeveloped subdivisions that have been approved in the surrounding areas. And I would just point out too that earlier he mentioned that they've done similar developments in St. Simon's Island. And if you look at those, that particular development is still mostly not developed, and that was started in 2015. So just something to take into consideration is how long this would actually end up causing a disruption in our neighborhood. So that's all I have. Thank you.
Anyone else? Maybe I can't, anyone would like to stand up? If not? Okay.
Mr. Chairman, we open for a motion.
We are open for a motion.
I'm gonna preface this with one remark. I have, with the exception of a short pause for the call, I've sat here and listened to a lot of very smart people talking. I've heard two people talk in favor of it. One is a developer, the other one is his attorney. And the people that live in the neighborhood have been unanimous, I believe, in their opposition to the proposal as presented tonight. I feel it is my duty, as I have stated before, to listen to both sides and try my best to figure what is the best for the city of Griffin and the community surrounding the property in question, consistent with state law. In this case, I feel I must make a motion to recommend to the city commissioners that they deny the rezoning request for project number 20-REZ-04 at 670 South Hill Street.
I second.
A motion and a second. I'd like to ask you to qualify that as with 12 lots.
As presented.
12 lots.
Well, the request from the developer is for 15, and the city has asked for 12. And I'm just wanting to die both.
Okay. So, okay,
Let's stick with the zoning. I disagree with rezoning, period.
with rezoning.
It would have to be rezoned. I disagree with rezoning it for a spot zoning for a neighborhood that people take very much pride in living in.
Okay, but that is with the knowledge that there could be 8 homes
Yes,
put in there.
I mean, that would be with the zoning.
Right.
But
Okay.
to change the zoning, well, that's what our question is it not? We're voting to change it from LDR to what is it? MDR? Isn't that part of the proposal?
That's a proposal, is a rezoning request.
Right, so it's just a motion to deny the rezoning of the property as it sits.
Any other discussion? Well, I think I can come away tonight with saying that this is truly an education process. It's an education process for the folks that spoke for and against. And I think that this is what I like to see in Griffin, Georgia, that it's a very civil crowd and there have been a lot of well thought out statements. And I appreciate that as being a lifelong Griffinite. So, we have a motion in a second, so we're down into the discussion.
Well, are we discussing with the?
David said that he All right, would you restate your
I
motion?
will
please?
restate mine to
Okay.
deny the rezoning request for project number 20-REZ-04 located at 670 South Hill Street.
And that is what you second?
Yes, that's what I
Those were
said.
your words, but the word second did not come through. I understood that. Okay. All right, now we have, we're open for discussion with the board. Do we have any other input? Any other words? I hear none, so therefore I will call the question. All of those in favor of denying the request as put forth by the city, I'd like to see a show of hands that is voting to deny. Having said that, I will say that I did look at that house personally, and I thought it was a beautiful home, and had I been a younger man in a different time frame, that probably would have been something that I would have been interested in. I did take one of the older homes on East College and put a lot of my heart and soul in that, and that was very fulfilling. So, having said that, do we have any other staff comments?
Nope, you guys have one application coming before you next month. Other than that, we're done.
Okay. If nothing else, thank you. Again, Jim Hill thanks everyone for coming tonight. I really do appreciate this.
So does David Cassidy.
Thank you. You y'all can come back next month.
Normally here.
We like David, I always.
Is there a motion to adjourn?
The meeting is adjourned. We don't need a motion.
Right.